This video contains spoilers for Squid Game Seasons 1 and 2. If you don't care, please give me views. If you've already seen the show, you will understand this video way better. Media literacy feels like it's at an all-time low. There have always been movies, TV shows, games, and books that people just don't get. And sometimes that number of people is bigger than other times. And I get it. There's a lot of pieces of media where not a lot of thinking is required. And hey, this is totally fine. I'm absolutely a victim of watching shows or playing games that are objectively not smart. But that's something to acknowledge. Sometimes we could all use some mindless cartoons or lazy sitcoms. Like, honestly, the last thing I want when I'm going to bed is something that makes me reflect or spend time filling in the blanks. But that's the type of storytelling that needs to be recognized for what it is. But this type of storytelling of spelling out all the pieces with no further reflection needed is something that's become all too common, especially when big blockbuster movies are trying to reach the largest audience possible. This oversaturation of spectacle in favor of depth of story leads to an expectation for a lot of people that all media is simply what is presented to you. And sometimes the people who market or promote this media feed into this by making shows seem more one note than they are. And this is exactly what Netflix has done to Squid Game. Let's talk about that. The first season of Squid Game originally released on September 17th, 2021, with Squid Game Season 2 releasing on December 26th, 2024. So this video is maybe a month late to the party, but I was thinking about this the other day and thought that it could be a fun video. So here I am, making it a video. The plot of Squid Game follows Gi-hun, a man who is in massive amounts of debt because of his gambling addiction. When he was down on his luck and it seemed like there was no way out, he was then invited to participate in a competition of children's games for a grand prize of 45.6 billion won, which according to Google is $31,430,826 in US currency. And however fucking much in British people money, you figure it out. The twist to this competition was that if you lose the games, you die, with each player eliminated adding to the total prize. Squid Game is a story about desperation, about cruelty, and about greed. These people who are playing these games are not there because they think it's fun. It's objectively the most dangerous situation a lot of these contestants will ever be in. They're there because of the prize, because the frontman and those who run the game take advantage of people who have nowhere else to turn. Gi-hun was at risk of being dismembered by loan sharks he owed money to. Participating in these games was his only choice. The same stands true for almost every contestant besides 001 in each season. But this choice is no choice at all. This becomes all too apparent throughout Season 2 when, after each game, they take part in a vote. Voting O meaning that you want to continue the games to win a larger prize, and voting X meaning you want the games to end to leave with your share of the prize money. Majority vote wins. And this vote was close after each game, and the organizers of the games took advantage of this. They knew the contestants wouldn't leave, because at least most of them would be at their rock bottom, and the thought of playing just one more game to win more money was too tempting. Because they didn't have enough to pay off their debt with only a game or two under their belt. And most of these people were desperate enough to put the players who did want to leave in harm's way, knowing others would die, all for selfish gain. Humans are inherently wired for a fight-or-flight response when backed into a corner. And these games were a dangerous corner to be backed into. Voting to stay or leave the games was a vote of fight or flight, to push forward in spite of the danger, or to escape while still in one piece. And to be blunt, very few people would prioritize a stranger over their own well-being when it's such a low. This is just my opinion, and you are welcome to disagree and discuss it in the comments, but I think humans are innately selfish. Overcoming this is something that must be gained through self-restraint and great people become capable of. But primitively, if two cavemen were being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, it would become everyone for themselves if one chose fight and one chose flight. This same mentality drives the Squid Games. This sentiment is encapsulated perfectly by a scene in episode 1 of season 2. Recruiter, who invites the players to the games, is followed throughout the episode as Gi-hun tries to track down the frontman in order to end the games. And when his operatives track down the recruiter, they watch as he buys vast amounts of bread and lottery tickets. He then goes to a park with plenty of homeless people and goes up to them and offers them a choice between bread that will help them eat in the moment or a lottery ticket that gives them a chance at winning more money. And almost every time, they took the risk and chose the tickets, and each time, lost. And the recruiter would then stomp on the bread and destroy it in front of them as a result of their choice. And seemingly, this had absolutely nothing to do with the games he was recruiting for. He was doing this purely for the love of the craft and dedication to the mentality behind the games, which is actually fucking insane. I haven't mentioned yet, but halfway through the games in Season 1, they had VIPs show up. Wealthy individuals across the world who come to see these games take place, to place bets and for their own sick enjoyment. They saw these people at their lowest as lesser than them, pawns to be eliminated. For the players, these were their lives at play. This feeds into the inherent cruelty and selfishness of both humanity and just life itself. The upper class takes joy in the suffering of the lower class. It's a game for them. These VIPs are not good people. A lot of the players of the games are not good people. Good, or at least morally gray people, are put through these trials because of the worst of humanity. This upper class creates the circumstances that drive the games. They could easily bail all of these players out of their debt, but they don't. They make them perform to earn it, which is just twisted. Squid Game is a story about what dark elements of our psyche make us human. The games are very human, fucked up, but human. They take advantage of the darkest parts of the human mind, making some kill who would never to begin with, bargain with others' lives for their own gain. Then there's Thanos, who pushed people to their deaths before he even knew he would get money for it. Ding! But this story has so many layers to it, I could spend all day dissecting individual scenes to relate them to the human experience. But the point is, that's something that can be done with this piece of media. It makes you think. And it's obviously still making me think over a month after the new season came out. The games are a setting, if anything. They aren't the point of the show, as crazy as that is to say. They're the plot element that drives this story forward. They're the namesake of the show, but this show wouldn't have made it as far as it has and gained the audience it has without the depth that the human element has provided. And this is something that some people just don't get. Specifically, Netflix does not understand Squid Game. I want to talk about how Netflix advertises Squid Game. If you watch the trailer for season 1 of the show, you'll notice how much of the focus is on the games, and how it also spoils the reveal of each game. Part of the tenseness of the games is how the players don't know what's coming next. That's why they switched the games up in season 2, and removing that reveal from the audience in the trailer feels cheap, when so much more focus could have been spent on the circumstances and humanity of the games, rather than the games themselves. But hey, I get it. Sometimes you need a flashy trailer with cool visuals to drag an audience in, because focusing on individual characters could be seen as too slow for a trailer. But almost all of the focus is on the games. They don't even touch on why the players are there. But again, this may have just been to draw an audience in, but this wouldn't explain why for season 2 they had a similar trailer that continued to be flashy. I will say season 2's trailer does a better job at showing what the show is about, but it feels like it's just hitting all the story beats. It spoils a lot of plot elements and really only focuses on Gi-hun. I get because he's one of the only returning characters this season, but it feels like the trailer gives away too much of his story arc. But again, I'm just not a big fan of when trailers give away too much of the later story. Well, this trailer focuses on the last few episodes, which are more action heavy. If we pay attention to more of Netflix's advertising for season 2, we'll notice that a lot of it is oddly performative and capitalistic. They did some interesting real-life promotion events, including a giant red light, green light game in Paris, with 456 randomly selected participants. And while this is very unique, it very much gamifies an aspect of the show that is supposed to be condemned. At Sydney Harbour in Australia, they had Squid Game take over the harbour by having guards from the show escort the giant red light, green light doll in a boat. They turned the murder device into a spectacle. More heinously, they even had a Squid Game sponsorship for Domino's, which I will admit was pretty funny. But pretty funny advertising feels really weird to talk about for a show condemning corporatism. Squid Game shoes are also a real thing you can buy. Additionally, they had a Squid Game themed 5-mile run in Los Angeles, California, which just feels like a reskin of a normal race. I don't really see how this is Squid Game related, but surprisingly, I don't feel like this misunderstands Squid Game nearly as much as other advertising, seeing as it's hardly related. Leading up to Season 2's release, they continue to do the same gamification by creating Squid Game the Experience in New York City. And, well, the concept of playing the games in real life sounds neat. It feels like it just wholly does not understand the point of the show. They also have a night market outside where you can spend your money on food and Squid Game merch. By commercializing the games and glorifying participating in them, it almost feels like a disconnect from the message of the show. Some pieces of media just shouldn't be commercialized so heavily, specifically if the message of the show is literally saying, don't do this. But hey, at least they aren't making it a competition for vast amounts of money like in the show. Squid Game The Challenge released on Netflix on November 2nd, 2023, which was a competition for a vast amount of money. Netflix turned Squid Game into a franchise following the first season's success, which makes sense from a marketing standpoint, but from a storytelling perspective, feels like artificially extending what's a direct story with a purpose into something different. And once again, the focus is on the games, which admittedly makes sense, it's a game show, but a show about how you shouldn't watch people in great distress scramble and throw each other under the bus for money having a spin-off where you're watching just that feels like it misses the point of the show. I haven't watched the whole of Squid Game The Challenge, but it's a westernization of a show with a message and only taking away the flashy game part of the show. Well, there are human elements where they focus on individual people. It feels no different than any other game show in that way. It was an interesting watch, but I couldn't imagine sitting through 10 hours of it the way I binged Squid Game Season 2. It just feels like what was a struggle for people in mass amounts of debt turned into a game show for mostly well-off people who are screen-trained. Now, I'm not saying go find homeless people and throw them in the game. That would be infinitely worse. But what was a message about the rich taking advantage of the poor feels like some people goofing off with the flashy parts of the show. What would be in the show people's lives at play feels like privileged people upset they didn't win money, which is how game shows go, that's fine. But the concept of Squid Game feels incompatible with a game show format. But Netflix did it anyway. There's a part in the first episode where 4 players had to choose which shape their team had to cut out in Dalgona. And they were all kind of being assholes about it, and it just felt hard to watch. It was like watching kids fight during recess.
I'm taking triangle.
No, I'm taking triangle. You go get star.
Oh, I don't mind the star. I'll take the star.
I'm taking triangle. Nope, I'm taking triangle.
And one guy got everyone there eliminated just because he refused to choose a shape because he didn't get the one he wanted.
Someone's got to have the umbrella.
No.
It felt juvenile, and well, it feeds into the selfish aspect of Squid Game. It didn't come from desperation. It came from the game show aspect of the show. Now, you can't control how people act during a game show, unless it's scripted, which would actually make sense now that I'm thinking about it, but assuming it's not, the mentality of just playing games is a misunderstanding of the show. This isn't the only time Netflix has done this. Netflix also makes very bad mobile games. That is a whole separate thing, which could actually make a really fun video. Let's put a pin in that idea. But they released Squid Game Unleashed in 2024, which, besides having a very unpleasant art style, wholly misses the point of Squid Game once again. This may as well be a Squid Game obby in Roblox because of how simplistic it is and how it takes the games are bad sentiment from the original show and turns it into the games are fun. Also, we have over 40 of them. Bye, bye, bye. Most of these games aren't even related to Squid Game and understand the point of the show even less than Squid Game The Challenge. There is no human aspect, and it's just another mindless mobile game. It's just a cash grab, which is ironic for a show which condemns such a thing. Speaking of obbies in Roblox, it's not only Netflix that doesn't understand Squid Game. Their promotion and handling of the franchise reflected a lot onto the audience. Or at least some people just don't get the message behind the show, and Netflix enables this. But the point is, you'll see all over Roblox all of the Squid Game games, which makes sense. It's a popular show. But each time it has the same misunderstanding of the franchise as just the games with no depth. This is more forgivable, seeing as it's, Roblox, but it signifies something greater. The message of the show is getting lost on a lot of the audience. We continue to see this as things like Beast Games pops up, showing the mass gamification of the Squid Game formula, misunderstanding how much of the show is condemning things exactly like this. But at least Mr. Beast isn't killing anyone. Yet. The point is, Netflix took the idea of Squid Game and shit all over it. The message of the show has been simplified to reach a wider audience, leaving only a flashy concept with no deeper meaning. Which is why we're so lucky Squid Game Season 2 stuck by the message of the first season and didn't fall into the same traps that Netflix laid out for every other entry in the franchise. Netflix does not understand Squid Game, but we've already been over it. Thanks for watching.